Thank you for the nice introduction. Today I would like to discuss some results of 2 studies that we have done in which we implemented the e-cigarette in standard quit smoking treatment in Belgium. First, some declaration of my interest. My PhD research focuses on tobacco harm reduction and mainly on e-cigarette based THR. So today I would like to discuss what we do know at this point about quit smoking rates among vapers, and this will lead me to the research question that we had. I will also discuss the study design that we used both for the pilot study as well as for the current larger study. And the third and the fourth point will be then the results, the main results of the pilot study, and as well as some preliminary results of the current study. And I will wrap it up with some take-home messages. So first, what do we know? We know that from current smokers, over half of them tried to quit smoking in the past. In Belgium, this percentage is centered around 60%. And among these smokers that have tried to quit smoking in the past, we see that most of them try to quit smoking without any assistance. But unfortunately, the success rates on a successful quit attempt in the long term is very low. If people use the standard smoking cessation aids as nicotine replacement therapy or medication, then there is a doubling of the effect. And this brings me to the question, what are the quit rates of people who are using e-cigarettes? And as the previous speaker also mentioned, there are a lot of different kinds of research that can help us out answering this question. So I will briefly discuss these. So first we have the self-reported quit rates and convenience samples of vapers. And we see that over 80% of these vapers are completely smoking abstinence. These rates are very high, and probably there is a selection bias of people who have been questioned and also an overestimation of these quit rates. If we want to make some causal inferences by saying using an e-cigarette will help you quit smoking, then we need to look at randomized controlled trials. Unfortunately, there is a limited number of these RCTs. The first one that is noted is one that we did by ourselves, and there you can see that in the long term, 20% of people quit smoking by using an e-cigarette. In the 2 studies below that are famous or well known, we see that around 10% of people who were randomized to the e-cigarette condition had quit smoking in the long term, and that they did better than using patches or placebo e-cig. But of course, this is in a specific context of controlled condition, and often in these studies, first-generation e-cigs have been used. A very recent RCT done by Hayek and colleagues, there we see that people randomized to e-cig condition had a quit rate of 18% compared to around 10% for those who were using nicotine replacement therapy. We can also look at prospective observational cohort studies, and there we see that quit rates range between 20 and 52%. Of course, here this is infrequent daily users that are trying to quit smoking, and there is a possibility that there is some residual confounding of variables that are not measured. And at last, there are also population data that show that around between 30 and 50% of vapers have quit smoking. Also here, this is complete smoking abstinence in current e-cig users, and it is not similar to the chance to be a complete smoking abstinence when you start vaping. Of course, there are also people who want to quit smoking and go and seek counseling for that. So that will bring me to the research question that we had, and that is, what is the effect of implementing the e-cig as a smoking cessation aid in the standard treatment of tobacco counselors? So in Belgium, one option that you have if you want to quit smoking is that you can go to counselors that will help you individually or in group to quit smoking. And we implemented the e-cigarette as an equal standard smoking cessation aid in addition to nicotine replacement therapy and medication. And the question is, are smokers who choose an e-cig more successful in smoking cessation? The study design of the pilot study looks as this. The It were group counseling sessions, and there were 8 sessions in a range of 13 weeks. And as you can see, the sample size of the pilot study is very low. Important is that participants could choose their own smoking cessation aid. So people were not randomized. It's very important to keep in mind. And that they could choose which aid they wanted to use. And the quit date was around week 4. The larger study is similar to the pilot study. You see that the sample size has increased, and we also added an additional session to follow up the participants in the longer term to see what the effect was concerning quit rates. People were asked to perform a CO measurement to verify smoking abstinence, and they also needed to fill out questionnaires at several time points. This were questions about social demographics, smoking history, harm perception, self-reported quit smoking status. So if we look at the results of the pilot study, then we see the following. This graph show the quit percentage, and below you see follow-up 1 and follow-up 2. This is halfway the sessions, and this is at the end of the treatment. We see that at follow-up 1 there is no difference between all of these groups. What is important to see is that medication users have a 100% of quit rate. At follow-up 2 this disappears, and you also see that e-cig users are doing much better compared to NRT users. And this is also confirmed if you look at the relative risk ratios for a successful quit attempt at the last follow-up. So if you compare e-cigarette users with NRT users, then the quit rates are the chances are much higher. If we look at the preliminary results of the current study, then we approached a group that is around, on average, 52 years old. The 60% was female, and most of them had a high school degree and were working full-time or were retired. Concerning smoking, they were smoking for around 31 years and were smoking 16 cigarettes per day, were moderate dependent on their cigarettes, and again here, 83% tried to quit smoking in the past. Were there differences between the groups at intake? So people chose their own smoking cessation aid, and we looked at the differences at intake. It's a baseline characteristics. And there we see that people who chose no aid were significantly smoking less compared to all other groups. The combination users, and these are the e-cig users that are also using nicotine replacement therapy, were significantly more dependent compared to the no-aid users. And if we look at the harm perception of e-cigarettes, then we see that people who chose for an e-cigarette were scoring the harm of an e-cigarette significantly lower compared to other groups. Important, there were no differences in other baseline characteristics. And important to take into mind is that e-cig users were not smoking less, compared to other groups. So it were the no-aid users who were smoking significantly less. So the results, again, the quit percentage, you can see over here, and then below are the several time points. So the results confirms the results of the pilot study in the case that, again, medication users are doing it significantly better during treatment. So at the first follow-up measurement and also at the end of the treatment, they are doing best. And these results are also biologically verified. If we look at the last follow-up, and this is around 6 to 7 months after quit date, then we see that the medication users are dropping down, and that the e-cig users remain relatively stable and are doing better than NRT users, and that medication users are also doing better than NRT users. If we then look again at the relative risk ratios for a successful quit attempt at the last follow-up, then we also see that e-cig users are doing much better than NRT users. These results show that there is a high quit percentage of people who chose for an e-cigarette, and they also are in the same line as what Ajak and colleagues found. If you look here, then you see that the e-cig users have a double of percentage compared to nicotine replacement therapy users. So this will bring me to the take-home messages to wrap it up. So our pilot study showed that e-cig users were superior to those using other cessation aids. The current larger study showed that there is a very high success rate in e-cig users, that e-cig users were superior to nicotine replacement users, which is in line what the recent RCT found, and that the relapse rates in e-cig users is significantly lower compared to other conditions. These results confirm also recent data from Jackson and colleagues, where they saw that varenicline users are also, and e-cig users have higher chances to be in the long term a quitter compared to NRT users. So e-cig users were doing definitely better than NRT users, and e-cig users were equally as good, if not better, as medication users. I would like to thank all of these people, the tobacco counselors that helped us out, also all the students that were involved in the data collection, and of course the team that worked on this study. Thank you.